want to take some time and talk about Chucky because Chucky is one of my favorite horror characters of all time, and if it wasn't for Chucky, I would have never gotten into horror to begin with, so I have to thank Chucky a lot for that. And I mainly just want to dissect Chucky's character so we get a better understanding of him when it comes to his origins and backstory, when it comes to his personality traits, when it comes to his identity and self-perception. I just want to talk about things like that so we get a better understanding of like, okay, this is who Chucky truly is as a person. So if you guys have anything you want to say about Chucky personally when it comes to his character as a whole, or anything overall that you guys want to say about the Chucky franchise, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, because I always love checking out your thoughts after I post the video. The first thing I do want to talk about when it comes to Chucky in this video is his origins. When it comes to like the origin story of a character, it really tells you a lot about the character. We see like, you know, different things that take place in their life that really build them to be the kind of person that they are today. So I definitely want to talk about that first, because there is definitely a lot of things to say when it comes to Chucky's backstory as a whole. Because Chucky's story pretty much starts with Charles Lee Ray, which is who Chucky is before he becomes that killer doll that we all know him to be. And Charles Lee Ray is known as this ruthless serial killer. I mean, even past like what we see from like earlier in the movies, he's still being talked about till this day, just based on the sort of impact that he has had within that world of the Chucky series. And there's a part where we see like in the beginning of the movie when it comes to Child's Play, where it was actually the opening act of the film actually, where we see Chucky getting chased down by a police officer that was going after him, and then he ends up getting shot. So he's pretty much on the urge of death around that point. So he goes inside of a toy store, and then he finds a good guy doll, which is one of the most popular toys out there around that time. And he ends up using this voodoo ritual that he learned to transfer his soul inside of a good guy doll. So that right there pretty much sets like the tone of the Chucky series, where we see like the mind of a serial killer being put inside of like a child's toy. Because when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, you know, nothing can go wrong. Like you're probably looking at it like Toy Story, where that Andy actually had a good childhood with his toys. Well, this Andy had a absolute horrible childhood with this toy, just based on everything that Chucky did. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's just very interesting to see like how they built upon that throughout the series, which is one of the main reasons why I love Chucky so much, just based on like, I'm just always very curious to see how they're going to orchestrate this in every movie or even the TV show itself. And one of the things I do want to say when it comes to Chucky's backstory is that in the early stages of the Chucky franchise, we did get bits and pieces of like learning about the character, but I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think until Curse of Chucky, we didn't really start diving deep into Chucky's character, where we got a better understanding of like, okay, this is who he truly is as a person. This is what happened back then before it led up to the events that we saw in the opening act of the Child's Play film. Because when it came to like Curse and Cult and the TV show, that's when you really started diving deep into Chucky's character. Because I remember in season 2 of Chucky, we were getting a lot of insight on Chucky as a character when it came to him as a kid, when it came to him as a teenager, when it came to him as an adult, when it came to him coming in contact with Tiffany for the very first time. So when it came to that point of the series where we're getting all this different kinds of information being thrown at us, when it came to Chucky's backstory and all the events that took place back then, it was just very interesting to learn a lot about the character, because you don't normally get things like that much, especially when it comes to like a horror series. Usually it's like, okay, we see something that happens in the beginning and that's it. Like we don't really get like a full breakdown when it comes to like certain characters. I'm not saying every character is like this, but when it comes to certain characters, you don't always get like that breakdown where it shows like from past and then building all the way up until present. So that's something that I could really appreciate that Don Mancini did when he was doing the Chucky TV series, where he was giving us all this information when it comes to Chucky's backstory, so we can get a better understanding of the character and we can learn, okay, this is why he acts the way he does, and this is why he has the kind of relationship with this character. And the next thing I do want to talk about is Chucky's personality traits, because when it comes to any character as a whole, and it's not just Chucky, but when it comes to any character as a whole, you always have to have a personality to stand out. Like you don't want to be bland and just, you know, not really do anything. Like you actually want to have a personality that really makes you stand out as a character. It makes you memorable by a lot of your fans, and a lot of people absolutely love Chucky. I mean, look at how popular Chucky is nowadays. So Chucky definitely has a personality that really stands out, that makes him probably one of the most known slashers within that horror genre. Because when it comes to Chucky's personality, like if I were to break it down when it comes to like certain things to really describe who he is as a person, he does have a mix of sadism, manipulativeness, and also he has a very sharp intelligence. Because when it comes to Chucky, he always has a great pleasure in tormenting his victims. I mean, Andy Barclay is a good case to showcase that Chucky just loved ruining that kid's childhood. I am sorry you had to go through that, Andy, but that's what happened. I'm sorry. But he really didn't mess up your childhood. I feel really bad for you. But like I said, he did that a lot with Andy, but also just showed that sadistic side for him because he always had this ability to manipulate other people. Like it wasn't just Andy that he was like manipulating people. There was other people as well, like characters that we got introduced to later on in the Chucky series, like Jake and Devin. We also see Lexi's younger sister that Chucky was getting in the head of. And we also see Nika's niece that he was trying to get in the head of. Like Chucky's always trying to do the best that he possibly can to get into somebody's mind, especially when it comes to kids. He knows, okay, I have this appearance as a doll, so I can get into their head a lot easier because a lot of kids love dolls. They love playing with them. So obviously with Chucky being in that position, he could do whatever he wants. So he could have them lead him to a certain spot where he's trying to pursue whatever goal that he has in mind. And that's something that Chucky has shown a lot throughout the Chucky series when it comes to him manipulating a lot of people. We pretty much see it within like every single movie when Chucky is taking advantage of every single person he comes in contact with, from Child's Play 1, and then he came to Child's Play 2, then we saw in Child's Play 3 when it was set at that like little army camp base where he was trying to persuade one of those kids over there to help him out to do certain things or tell him to do this and that. You get what I'm trying to say. Chucky has just been showing this side of him ever since the very beginning of the series, and it just showcases his cunning nature because of that very reason. And also we have to bring up his intellect as well, because that is very evident when it comes to the complex and brutal plans that he always comes up with whenever he's always trying to be one step ahead of his adversaries. Because we see what Chucky within the series itself, where, you know, Chucky at first he got outsmarted, where people were able to actually outsmart him and actually manage to beat him. But as we've seen later on within the franchise itself, Chucky learned to actually be one step ahead of people. So just in case something happens, Chucky already had a backup plan where he was able to, let's say, for example, survive within whatever situation that he was put in. And a good example of that is, I could say probably like later in the Chucky series, when Chucky learns to split himself into multiple dolls, because ever since the early stages of the Child's Play franchise, we've just seen Chucky be in one doll. That's just how it's been ever since the very beginning when it came to the original Child's Play movies, when it came to Child's Play 1, 2, and 3. Then we saw that with Bride of Chucky, we saw that with Seed of Chucky, and then we also saw that with Curse. And it wasn't until Cult where Chucky was really starting to understand, like, okay, I could actually split my soul into multiple dolls, so just in case I die in this body, you know, there's like a good 2 to 3 to 4 other versions of me running around, so it's not like I'm gonna get caught red-handed in that situation that I put myself in. And then of course we see that in the TV series where there's just like a whole truckload of a whole bunch of Chucky dolls. That right there definitely shows, like, okay, you know, he's very smart. He actually comes up with all these different kinds of plans so he could have things orchestrated a lot better. And that's something that I can definitely point out when it comes to his character. So the next thing I do want to talk about is Chucky's identity and self-perception. Chucky's struggle with his identity has been a reoccurring theme throughout the series ever since the very beginning, where he often grapples with the fact of, like, you know, being a human soul trapped inside of a doll's body. And he often reflects on his past a lot, as Charles Lee Ray, talking about everything that happened in his life ever since that period before he was put inside of a doll. And it just showcases like his frustration when it comes to a lot of these existential crises, which just adds a lot of depth to his character, just highlighting his desperate attempts to reclaim his human form when it comes to the conflict between his past and present selves. And that's something that we have seen when it comes to certain points of the films where we've seen, like, you know, Chucky trying to find the perfect person where he could transfer his soul into. That's why we see him come across people like Andy or Nika's niece, because Chucky's just putting himself inside of a doll's body just to keep himself like alive in that situation, especially with what we saw earlier in the movie. But at the end of the day, he still wants to be a human. And even throughout the series as well, you know, even Chucky was like looking at like how humans are as people, and he's also starting to think like maybe it doesn't really suck being inside of a doll's body, because you got to keep in mind, you know, as I grow older, I'm gonna start aging, I'm gonna start not being able to do what I normally would like 20 to 30 years ago. So you have like that nice balance where it's like, okay, it would be cool to be a human, but at the same time, I'm fine where I am. And that's just a very interesting thing when it comes to showcasing the identity and self-perception of the character, because it just makes it very interesting to see how they grow as a character throughout those said films or TV series, of course, when it comes to the Chucky TV series. Now I want to talk about the humor and horror of the character, because when it comes to Chucky, you know, he's very humorous a lot throughout the films that we've seen when it comes to various scenes that takes place within the Child's Play franchise. But also we see a lot of the crazy stuff that Chucky does as well. That's also adds that horror element to the series as well that we are all very familiar with, because with his dark humor and his witty one-liners that we've seen throughout the Child's Play franchise. Like if I were to name like a couple of his iconic quotes, it would be like, okay, we're friends till the end. Or you have another quote where he says, you know what they say, you just can't keep a good guy down. Nothing like a strangulation to get the circulation going. Go ahead and shoot, I'll be back, I'll always be back, which is one of the one-liners that we saw towards the end of the Bride of Chucky film. And of course, probably one of my favorite quotes that he said towards the end of The Seed of Chucky: I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky the killer doll, and I dig it. And a couple of those one-liners that we do see are normally delivered after a lot of his gruesome acts, where it just adds that twisted charm of his character. So because of that combination, it makes him both terrifying and oddly endearing, where it just enhances memorability and giving him a unique place within the horror genre, which a lot of people have become really big fans of Chucky over the years. And probably the last thing I do want to talk about when it comes to Chucky's character is the cultural impact on the character, because Chucky has definitely had an impact within the horror genre, especially when it comes to the early stages, because the 1980s is when it was really striving with a lot of these horror films where people like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, and I know Michael Myers started off at like the late 70s, but still, even with Halloween in mind, you know, that was a very big thing that really helped the slasher genre really move. And Chucky was also like a very nice addition to that as well, because Chucky has just left a significant mark on popular culture, just becoming an iconic horror figure like the other figures that I mentioned as well, because we see good examples of that when it comes to like the franchise's success spanning films, which I believe there's probably around like 7 films now. And we also have the Chucky TV series that's been around for 3 seasons. We also see a lot of the merchandise as well that always gets sold every single time whenever you put a Chucky product out. It just reflects on his endearing popularity that just shows us as people that, yeah, Chucky's here to stay. Chucky's not going anywhere. Everybody loves Chucky. I mean, whenever Chucky's name gets brought up, a lot of people get excited because they always want to see exactly what sort of plans Don Mancini has for the character next, which is also something that I can probably relate to as well, because I always look forward to seeing, you know, what kind of ideas that Chucky's going to be having next that extends the series even further, so we can dive even deeper and understand like, okay, what is the next chapter of this saga? But other than that, that's honestly all I have to really say when it comes to the whole psychology of Chucky, you know, fully understanding who he truly is as a character, and also understanding the sort of impact that he also has had within the horror genre as well. So if you guys have anything you want to say when it comes to Chucky's character, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, because as you guys know, I happen to be a really big fan of Chucky, so it'd be pretty cool if there's any other Chucky fans out there that happen to come across this video that want to share their thoughts on the character, or possibly if you guys want to share your thoughts on other characters you happen to enjoy as well, or just anything overall that you guys want to say about the Chucky TV series. Be sure to let me know in the comments section down below. As you enjoyed this video, as always, be sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And also, if you guys want to follow me on my social media, be sure to check out my Twitter, my Instagram, my TikTok, and my Facebook page. All of that is located in the description below. And also be sure to click on that bell for notifications so you guys are notified right away whenever I upload a new video. But other than that, that's honestly all I have to say. So I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be, if it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.